그냥 tutto
I think I can start. So thank you everyone for joining today to this event on the role of journalists fighting for the democracy and freedom of expression. Thank you for taking your time and being here. My name is Laura and I will be the moderator for today. Before I starting, I would like to announce that if you would like to hear the event in Burmese, please tune yourself in the Korean channel. There will be a Burmese interpreter who will translate from English to Burmese and from Burmese to English. We opted for the Burmese channel instead of we opted for the Korean channel instead of the Burmese channel on purpose because the Burmese option is quite a new option. So it can happen that maybe some participant, since they have the latest version of Zoom, they maybe have some problem in hearing the translation. That's why we opted for the Korean channel. I would like also to inform you that this event will be live streamed on Forum Asian and ADN social media platform. And there will be a running live Q&A session. And after that, the speaker, after the speaker have delivered their speeches. And the event will be live streamed until the Q&A session. After that, we will stop the live stream and we will go to the breakout room session that will last for 20-25 minutes. And here the participant will have more intimate time to ask a question to the speakers. The aim of the breakout room is to come up with some recommendation from the CSO, from the participant, from the speakers on how to support the democracy and freedom of expression and journalism. For those who do not feel comfortable, for who do not feel comfortable or for security reason, you can just switch off your camera. But for those who can, you can switch on the camera because it will be nice to see your faces. So the side event, this side event is within ASEAN Democracy Assembly 2021. And which has been held annually to consolidate the pro-democracy actor within Asia in effort to enhance awareness of democracy issues, plugging the region and unify effort to address such issues. The ASEAN Democracy Assembly will be held on November 23 and 24 at 4 p.m. Korean time. I will paste on the chat the link. So the first, sorry. So here is for having further detail of the Asia Democracy Assembly. And here, the second link that I'm sending is the bit.ly link for register yourself to the event. Yes. So going back to the event of today, as everyone knows, 9 months have passed since the military took the power in Myanmar from the elected government in early February 2021. And since then, the independent media and press freedom has been destroyed, and Section 505 of the Penal Code has become the junta power against freedom of expression. The military has taken repressive action against local and foreign media, with several local and international journalists targeted for their jobs and forcing many of them in hiding or exile. According data available from Reporting ASEAN, the military has arrested 102 journalists since they took the power, and 31 are still detained since February 2021. While 11 media houses have been charged under Section 505 of the Myanmar Penal Code and had their license revoked or both. For this event, we will have 3 prominent speakers. We will have Kin Omar, the founder and chairperson of Progressive Voice, Sen Mai, editor-in-chief of Miki China News Journal, and So Mya, founding editor-in-chief and managing director of Mizima Media Group. Now I will go to give the floor to Kin Omar. Kin Omar is a Burmese activist and founder of and chairperson of Progressive Voice, a Myanmar human rights organization. Kin Omar has been a human rights practitioner and advocate since 1988. As a student activist in 1988, she took part in organizing the 8888 pro-democracy uprising in Myanmar. She studied at the Bard College at Simon's Rock, and she worked with Refugee International United States. So I would like to ask to Kin Omar if you would like to assess the situation of democracy in the past 9 months, and what are the key topics and trends that have come under the attempted coup. Thank you so much, Kin Omar. You will have 10 minutes starting from now. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Laura. Thanks. So for the last almost 10 months now, since this military attempted the illegal coup data, and they are not successful yet. I think it's important for us to keep in mind that this military coup is not successful yet, and they haven't taken control of the country, even though they are desperately trying. But since February, we can see that some progress of the democracy, that all cornerstones of democracy that Myanmar people has made in the last 10 years, including the media freedom, freedom of assembly and expression, have been under severely violent attacks by this illegitimate military junta. These attacks continue at a rapid pace as the junta tries desperately to gain control over the country through the brutal force and violence against the civilians, and through mass arrest, mass killings, rape and torture, as well as censorship and attacks on the media, of course. The juntas aim to silence critical voices, prevent the media from reporting on their atrocity crimes, and to control the narrative and flow of information to the people of Myanmar and abroad. Yet the information keeps coming out, as the people themselves are now reporting as citizen journalists, in addition to our courageous, brave media reporters and journalists. This junta has already killed at least 1,265 people, arrested over 10,000 people. Attacks and arrests continue almost on a daily basis. The crackdown on journalists being fierce, with cases of those working in the media being abducted to interrogation centers, then subjected to beating, torture. Of course, my media colleagues will talk about that. But also, it's important for us to also note that the junta abduct family members of democracy activists and supporters and demand ransom while planting mines under the bodies of civilians that they mercilessly killed. This junta, we have to know that, is nothing but a terrorist organization. And then a freedom of expression activist organization says since the coup, at least 129 people working in the media have been arrested, as Laura already mentioned. One key weapon against the journalists that we see is the use of laws, which this military junta, as illegal terrorist organization, has no authority to amend or enforce. Besides, the journalists in ethnic and conflict areas are at an even greater risk as they uncover the crimes of the junta that creates more higher risk for them. As I'm sure my media colleagues will also talk about that, so I won't go into details. But what I want to stress that the new amendment of those laws are so broad, they could effectively be used to criminalize everyone and anyone for posting something online, whether an individual on Facebook or Twitter or someone a part of a media organization. The aim is to have a blanket law to criminalize any online opposition to the junta and its illegitimate coup attempt. Furthermore, what we see is, for example, the sale of Telenor to M1 threatened the freedom of expression and freedom of information even more further, as M1 does not share the same values of responsible business practices or a commitment to the human rights. The junta has routinely ordered telecommunications providers to cut the internet, hand over confidential and private information of users, and block websites. Taking a step back to look at the larger context, the people of Myanmar are going through hell. While the junta has intensified the attacks against the Spring Revolution, as people continue to be very boldly defiant against them through daily street protest, and also there are many other non-cooperation actions, such as like refusing to pay taxes or boycotting the military products. The junta has expanded its military campaigns in ethnic areas and central and northwestern Myanmar, where local defense forces are engaging in defense war with the junta troops, many of them supported and joined by the ethnic armies. In response to this people's defense war, the junta is conducting a scorched earth campaign, burning villages, conducting airstrikes. Even now, before I came and joined you on this panel, I was watching this morning air strikes in Sagai. They are conducting these airstrikes using advanced weaponry, including bombing civilians from fighter jets, using grenade-armed helicopters, setting villages on fire, but also using the people as a human shield and raping the women, you see. So since the beginning of October, they have built up troops in Northwestern in preparation for all-out offensives in the Northwest. And the ground situation shows us some parallels to the lead up to the genocide against Rohingya in 2017 that we're very worried. Chin State, in particular, bordering with India, has been among those ethnic states that are severely under the attack, because the Chin ethnic community's defense against this military junta has been very strong since the beginning. And thus now retaliation has been also extremely violent, including use of local people as human shields, but also other cruel tactics that is actually leading to a deepening of the humanitarian crisis. And there are a town like Tantalang in Chin State, pretty much almost the entire population of the town had to flee because of these attacks, for example. And recently for example, in Southern Shan State in Pekong, more thousands of people are fleeing. And since this attempted coup, we see that more than 250,000 people, 250,000, have already had to flee their homes and villages and towns due to these military attacks. In Karenni State alone, more than half of the population are now displaced due to the military attacks. But also there is another situation that people are facing is also because people are left to fend off the COVID-19 third wave without adequate healthcare or access to vaccines. So the humanitarian crisis is further deepening, which has now left 3 million people in need of life-saving aid, according to the UN. So that's why we're calling for the immediate UN-led coordinated humanitarian response. We cannot leave the matter of Myanmar humanitarian crisis in hands of the ASEAN. We need the UN to take the lead. As recently as on November 11, the junta soldiers repeatedly gang raped 2 Chin ethnic women in Chin State. One is a 27-year-old mother of 3 who gave birth about a month ago to the third child, while holding her husband at gunpoint, torturing them, this military. And there's the other woman who is a 30-year-old, 7-month pregnant, and she's a sister-in-law of the other victim. So these two women are the most recent victim of the sexual violence by this military. See that this military's use of widespread and systematic use of rape as a weapon of war against the ethnic and religious minorities been well documented over the last 2 decades, including the Rohingyas in 2017 during their clearance operations. So over the past month, we are seeing more rape and sexual violence cases and killing of the victims, including in Kachin state. And now also we are getting the reports of the sexual assaults and sexual violence against the women and LGBTIQ democracy activists in detention. So there is just one thing when we talk about democracy today, there is one positive development in terms of democracy happening at the moment in the last 10 months. That is the inclusiveness, equality, and minority rights. The Spring Revolution of Myanmar people has brought all these diverse communities come together and work together for their collective vision for future Myanmar, the new Myanmar, that is a federal democratic union of Myanmar. This is the first time ever in our country history that has made significant progress particularly in these cornerstones of the democracy, such as this inclusiveness, whereas the National Unity Government, the National Unity Consultative Council, these diverse communities are coming together and working together. So in conclusion, what I want to actually tell you and call on the international community as a whole is, this is the most opportune time for the international community to help the people of Myanmar to move forward by recognizing and respecting the will of the people and take the stand with the people, but not shake hands with this military, the murderous military junta, in the name of democracy, peace, and development for Myanmar people. Because shaking hands with this murderous military is nowhere near democracy and peace and development for Myanmar people. So that's something that we really need the international community to really get it. People have clearly outrightly rejected this unlawful terrorist organization, and they are sacrificing everything in their life, their future, their families, and all to establish democracy. And we need the international community to understand. And we want them to support the people of Myanmar, try to address the root causes of their suffering for generation, which is the military. So this is very important. So we need the international community also to recognize the National Unity Government. But my last point is to realize this vision, we need first and most importantly, we need to stop the military's campaign of terror against the people. And we can achieve this through cutting the flow of arms, cutting the flow of money, and also cutting their impunity. So in that, we need the international community to take a step up, take the step and make the concerted effort to cut all of these three things that this military can live long. My last point, very last point. The international community, particularly the United Nations, including the UN agencies, the ASEAN, individual governments, as well as the international bodies and the INGOs who are present in Myanmar, we don't want them to do the following. We don't want you to do the followings, you as those entities that I just mentioned. We don't want you to lend any legitimacy to the junta. You must not do anything to normalize this illegal attempted coup. This includes signing the MOU with the junta in Naypyidaw and trying to seize the international funding and implement programs as if nothing ever happened, as if things are normal in Myanmar. We are seeing UN agencies such as UNDP and other agencies giving the chance or inviting the military junta representatives to attend international meetings, and even some international governments such as Canada, who should be the champion of democracy, are actually inviting this junta. And this is not acceptable. Is it a practice of democracy or is it a hypocrisy? We find this approach very disturbing. And also this is against the well-coded international principle of do no harm. Where is that principle in this kind of approach? It is an insult to our people. Our people do not deserve less than the full realization of their aspiration for democracy. And we call on the international actors, all the international actors, not to treat our people in that way. We're not less in their aspiration for democracy than the others, and then yourself in those democracy countries. So with that, I end here. Thank you, and Laura, back to you.
Thank you so much for your speech, Kinomar, for assessing the situation of democracy over the past 9 months and highlight the trends and key topics that have emerged as a result of the attempted coup. And also thank you so much for highlight how the use of the how the law that has been amended has been used against journalists, against the people of Myanmar. And thank you so much for your strong call on the international community to stand with the Burmese people. Thank you so much, Kinomar. Now I would like to give the floor to our second speakers. I'm delighted to introduce to you Senmai. Senmai is editor-in-chief of Mitikina News Journal in Kachin State in Myanmar. In 2014, the 32-year-old co-founded the journal, the only regional independent newspaper in the state. She gained wide recognition for her work addressing women issues in conflict areas such as drug abuse, discrimination, and violence. In February 2018, she won the prestigious first prize at the Yangon Photo Festival for her photo essay about female soldiers fighting for the Kachin Independent Army. In 2017, she was awarded the Best Emerging Photographer with her work about women heroin user in the jade mine area at Pakatan. Senmai has a background from BBC Burmese radio and various newspapers in Myanmar. She had a college diploma in computer science. Additionally, she's committed in educating about human rights violation in conflict zone, natural resource extraction, and legal business in Kachin State. She risked her own life to report reality from the field, and she's dedicated to keeping the journal survival in the digital age to provide quality journalism to the people at the right time. I would like to ask to Senmai if she could perhaps speak about the role of women journalists, including ethnic women journalists in disclosing the event and all the obstacles for the democracy. And what is the role of women journalists in the current situation, given that the junta is actively targeting women? Thank you so much, Senmai. You have 10 minutes starting from now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, chào alo mình là ba. Cho nó đến thằng nào bọn nó mình chỉ nào bọn nó cái chuyện này mình chỉ nào miêu mà thì khi đấy đến sao đại cái bài bọn nó cho nó đến sao đại cả cho mà rồi cho nó cái conflict area mà bọn nó yên anh em thấy hiện ra này cho nó thì khi đấy này cái conflict area mà phía bài cho nó pin này đó sắp hiện này pin này phía bài bọn nó yên ông anh yên khi sẽ con ông anh sắp hiện này areaဖြစ်တဲ့နေရာမှာကျွန်တော်တို့တင်ဌာနတည်ရှိတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့တုန်းကကျွန်တော်တို့ရှိမှာပြောမှဆိုရင်ရှေ့တန်းပေါ့နော်ရှေ့တန်း area စစ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ area တွေမှာကျွန်တော်တို့အမျိုးသမီးတည်င်းထောက်တွေပေါ့နော်အမျိုးသမီးတည်င်းထောက်တွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကရှေ့တန်း area ကိုလွတ်ဖို့ပေါ့နော်တည်င်းသွားယူဖို့ကျွန်တော်တို့အများကြီးပဲစဉ်းစားခဲ့ရတဲ့အခြေအနေမျိုးတစ်ရက်ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ရင်ဆိုင်ခဲ့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုမြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာကခေတ်ဆက်ဆက်ကျွန်တော်တို့မီဒီယာဥပဒေတွေကတက်မဝင်ခဲ့ပါဘူးမီဒီယာတွေကိုလုံခြုံမှုပေးနိုင်တဲ့ဥပဒေတွေမရှိခဲ့ဘူးပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့အဲ့အကြောင်းမလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုရှေ့တန်းမှာတည်င်းတွဲယူဖို့ကျွန်တော်အများကြီးကျွန်တော်စဉ်းစားရပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ဒါပေမဲ့လည်းကျွန်တော်ဖေဖော်ဝါရီလမှာကျွန်တော်ဆက်အာဏာသိမ်းလိုက်မတရားဆက်အာဏာသိမ်းမှုနဲ့ကျွန်တော်ကြုံတွေ့ခဲ့ရတဲ့အချိန်မှာပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီအာဏာသိမ်းမတရားအာဏာသိမ်းမှုဟာအမျိုးသားတွေနဲ့ပဲမသက်ဆိုင်တော့ဘူးပေါ့နော်အမျိုးသားတင်းထောက်တွေနဲ့ပဲမသက်ဆိုင်တော့ဘူးကျွန်တော်တို့လုံခြုံရေးတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ကြည့်မနေတော့ဘူးပေါ့နော်အမျိုးသားမို့လို့အမျိုးသမီးမို့လို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ခွဲခြားရမှကျွန်တော်တို့ရှေ့တန်းလို့ရမယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာမျိုးကျွန်တော်တို့မရှိတော့ပါဘူးဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အမျိုးသမီးတွေကျွန်တော်တိုက်ဆိုရင်အမျိုးသမီးတွေပုံများပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်အမျိုးသမီးတင်းထောက်တွေပုံများပါတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုရင်အဲ့လိုအာဏာသိမ်းလိုက်တဲ့ချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့စိတ်ထဲမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့တင်းထောက်တွေတိုင်းစိတ်ထဲမှာပါရှိလဲဆိုရင်အချိန်နဲ့တမြင်းကြီးကျွန်တော်တို့ နိုင်ငံတကာကိုမိမောင်းထိုးပြရမယ့်အချိန်ဖြစ်သွားပြီပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့မတရားမှုတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ဘလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ပြည်သူတွေကိုဘလို့မတရားမှုတွေအနိုင်ကျင့်နေတယ်ဘလို့မျိုးလူခွင့်ရေးချိုးပေါက်တာတွေကိုအာဏာရှင်ကလုပ်နေတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့မိမောင်းထိုးပြရမယ့်အချိန်ဖြစ်သွားတဲ့ကြောင့်မလို့အမျိုးသားအမျိုးသမီးလို့ခွဲခြားနိုင်မယ့်အချိန်မဟုတ်တော့ဘူးပေါ့နော်တစ်ချိန်လုံးကကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့လိုမျိုးတွေစဉ်းစားခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်အမျိုးသမီးမို့လို့မလုံခြုံဘူးရှေ့တန်းကိုမသွားနဲ့အမျိုးသားမှုပဲအမျိုးသားဆိုရင်လည်းပိုစစ်ဖြစ်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာမျိုးတွေကျွန်တော်တို့စဉ်းစားခဲ့ကြတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီနလပိုင်းမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ဒါတွေမစဉ်းစားနိုင်တော့ဘူးပေါ့နော်အားလုံးကျွန်တော်တို့ရှေ့တန်းထွက်ခဲ့ကြတယ်အမျိုးသမီးတွေအများကြီးကျွန်တော်တို့ရှေ့တန်းထွက်ခဲ့ကြတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရှိမှာဆိုရင်အမျိုးသမီးသတင်းထောက်တွေကပုံများတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြီးရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အမျိုးသမီးတွေဟာရှေ့တန်းမှာlive လွှင့်ပြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့အချိန်နဲ့တပြေးညီပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့live ကိုလွှင့်ပြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့ကဘာတိအောင်ပြည်သူတနိုင်ငံလုံးတိအောင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တင်ဆက်ခဲ့တယ်ဆိုတော့ဘယ်လောက်ထိတောင်မှလူခွင့်ချိုးဖောက်ခဲ့တယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုမြတ်ဝါခင်တင်တက်တယ်နဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ပြနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့အခုချိန်ထိကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ footage တွေကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ရိုက်ခဲ့တဲ့ရှေ့တန်းက live တွေကိုအခုချိန်ထိနိုင်ငံတကာမီဒီယာတွေကသုံးနေလုံးမယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့channel ကတော့ April လကနေစပြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုတရားဝင် license သိမ်းပေးလိုက်တယ်ပေါ့နော်စစ်တပ်က license သိမ်းပေးလိုက်တယ်။ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့အဲ့တုန်းကနေကျွန်တော်တို့ကအများကြီးကျွန်တော်တို့ချင်းပြည်နယ်မှာရှိနေတဲ့လူခွင့်ချိုးဖောက်မှုတွေကိုစစ်တပ်ကလူခွင့်ချိုးဖောက်မှုတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကဘာသိအောင်ကျွန်တော် live လွှင့်ပြနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်။အဲ့အကြောင်းမို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုမြောက်ပိုင်းတိုင်းကပြောတယ်မြောက်ပိုင်းတိုင်းမှုကကျွန်တော်တို့ပြောတယ်ပေါ့နော်။ live မလွှင့်ပါနဲ့တခြားသတင်းရေးပါသတင်းရေးလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ဗီဒီယိုတင်ဆက်လို့ရတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ live ကိုလုံးဝသူတို့ပေးမလွှင့် live လွှင့်ရင်ဖမ်းမယ်ပြစ်မယ်သူတို့ဒီလိုမျိုးကျွန်တော်တို့ချင်းချောက်ခဲ့တာရှိတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒါပေမဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေဟာရှေ့တန်းမှာတက်တက်ကြွကြွပဲ live လွှင့်ခဲ့တယ် live လွှင့်တာအရန်အန်များပါတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုအဲ့တုန်းကပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဥပမာတစ်ခုပြောရမယ်ဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီCDM လုပ်နေတဲ့ NASMA တွေပေါ့နော် NASMA တွေအဲ့ကျောင်းရှိမှာသူတို့ဆန္ဒပြဖို့စုဝေးနေတဲ့အချိန်မှာစစ်တပ်ကနဲ့ရိုက်ပြီးမှ NASMA နှစ်ယောက်ခေါ်သွားတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ရင်းထောက်အမျိုးသမီးနှစ်ယောက်ပဲဒါကို live လွှင့်နေပေါ့နော် live လွှင့်ပြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့တင်ဆက်ခဲ့တယ် live လွှင့်တဲ့ချိန်မှာဒီမှာ live လွှင့်ရင်းနဲ့ live လွှင့်နေတဲ့အချိန်မှာမြောက်ပိုင်းတိုင်းကကြည့်ရပေါ့နော်ကြည့်တော့live ရဲ့တီနေရာပေါ့တီနေရာကိုဘယ်ကနေစလွှင့်နေလဲဘယ်နေရာကနေလွှင့်နေလဲဆိုတော့ live ရဲ့တီနေရာကိုကြည့်ပြီးမှသူတို့ဟာပြန်ပြီးမှစစ်ကားရင်းနဲ့ပတ်ပြီးမှသူတို့လိုက်ရှာတာမျိုးလုပ်ခဲ့ရပေါ့နော်အဲ့ချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ဒင်းထောက်အမျိုးသမီးတွေကသူများတွေအိမ်တွေဝင်ပြီးမှပေါ့နော်ဘိနာအိမ်တွေဝင်ပြီးမှပုံခိုခဲ့ရတဲ့အခြေအနေမျိုးတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ကြုံခဲ့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့တကယ်တော့ live လွှင့်တာအရင်အရင်များတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရှိမှာအဲ့တုန်းကဖြစ်ခဲ့တဲ့ February လနဲ့ April လအတွင်းမှာဖြစ်ခဲ့တဲ့အထီးယုံတွေအားလုံး live လွှင့်ခဲ့တာအမျိုးသမီးတွေပုံများပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရှိမှာအမျိုးသမီးတစ်ယောက်ကတော့ထောင်ကျသွားတယ်ဟိုတလောလုံးကမှပြန်လွတ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့အဲ့အမျိုးသမီးဆိုရင်သူကိုရိုင်းလိုက်ကလည်းအိမ်မှာပဲဒီလိုအကြမ်းဖက်ပြီးမှလာပြီးမှခေါ်ခံရတယ်ပေါ့နော်သူကတော့ရှေ့တန်းမှာဖမ်းခံရတော့မဟုတ်ဘူးအိမ်မှာဝင်စီးပြီးမှသူ့ကိုအိမ်ကနေအင်အားသုံးပြီးမှပေါ့နော်အင်အားသုံးဆိုတာ10 ယောက်လောက်ရှိတယ်အရက်ဝတ်နဲ့လာပြီးမှဖမ်းတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုဖမ်းတဲ့အခြေအနေမျိုးတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ကြုံခဲ့ရပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တိုင်းသားတွေကျွန်တော်တို့တိုင်းသားဒေသတွေမှာပေါ့နော်အဖမ်းခံရတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေပေါ့နော်အဖမ်းခံရတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေဆိုရင်အတန်တိတ်မှမထွက်ဘူးပေါ့နော်အတန်တိတ်မထွက်ဘူးဆိုတာမီဒီယာပေါ်မှာတိတ်မရောက်ဘူးကျွန်တော်တို့ဟိုထင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အခုဥမာဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အခုလောလောဆယ်ဖမ်းခံနေရတဲ့တောင်ကြီးကအမျိုးသမီး2ယောက်ပေါ့နော်တာမီ2ယောက်ဒင်းထောင်2ယောက်ပဲသူတို့ရဲ့အတန်တွေဆိုပျောက်နေတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့တိုင်းသားဒေသတွေမှာဖမ်းခံရတဲ့ဒင်းသမားတွေရဲ့အတန်တွေပေါ့နော်ဒင်းသမားတွေရဲ့အကြောင်းအရာတွေကိုမီဒီယာပေါ်မှာပြီးရင်နိုင်ငံတကာပေါ်မှာပျောက်ကွယ်နေတယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်မြင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ရန်ကုန်မှာရှိတဲ့တကယ်ပြည်ပမှာရှိတဲ့မီဒီယာတွေလောက်ပဲဖမ်းခံရတဲ့လူတွေရဲ့အတန်တွေပေါ့နော်ပို့ပြီးမှကြလောင်ထွက်တယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်ခံစားရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့တိုင်းသားတွေဒေတာမှာရှိနေတဲ့မီဒီယာသမားတွေဒင်းထောက်သမားတွေဒင်းထောက်တွေရဲ့ဖမ်းခံရတဲ့အခြေအနေတွေအဲ့ဒါတွေကတိမ်မျိုးပျောက်ကွယ်နေတယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်ထင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုပို့ပြီးကြလောင်ကြားစေချင်တယ်ပို့ပြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့ဖော်ထုတ်တင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အခုချိန်မှဒီတောင်ကြီးက ဖန်ခံရတဲ့မိသားစု2ယောက်သတင်းထောက်2ယောက်ဆိုရင်တာမီ2ယောက်ပေါ့နော်လုံးဝပျောက်ကွယ်နေတဲ့သတင်းတွေကဗမာသူတို့ကိုချုပ်နှောင်ထားလဲဆိုတာကျွန်တော်မသိရဘူးပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးအခြေအနေတွေကျွန်တော်ရင်ဆိုင်နေရတာပါဟုတ်ကဲ့ကျေးဇူးပါ
Thank you so much, Samai, for enlightening us on the role of women journalists, including the ethnic women journalists, and bringing light the events and all obstacles for the democracy, and also highlight that live streaming is really difficult and is really dangerous for doing right now in the country. Thank you so much for your contribution. And now I would like to give the floor to our third speakers. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Somya. Mr. Somya has been working in the media field since 1992 in different capacities from reporting, managing, and training. He was in exile for 24 years while the country was under military dictatorship. He founded Myanmar in New Delhi in India in 1998, together with Do Tin Tin Ao, who is currently being detained in insane jail in Yangon by the military junta. In January 2012, Myanmar was the first exiled media to move back inside Myanmar after the country opened up to the democratic change. The military regime forcibly shut down its free-to-air Myanmar TV channel when it took the power on February 1st, 2021. However, Myanmar continued to broadcast and publish independent news and information through 2 satellite Myanmar TV channel, FM and radio, Myanmar website, Myanmar Facebook, Myanmar YouTube, and Myanmar application, reaching more than 30 million of readers and viewers every day inside and outside the country. He and his colleagues are presently working from different locations inside and outside the country to continue to operate as independent media in Myanmar. He, along with 17 other Myanmar journalists, are being charged with the 505A of the Penal Code and the Unlawful Association Act by the junta for continuing reporting and publishing and broadcasting of Myanmar. Out of the 18 members, 1 is currently in jail in Myanmar. Thank you so much, Somya. I would like to ask you, acknowledging that Myanmar sent out in reporting news and by reaching millions of readers and viewers inside and outside the country, what is the view on Myanmar as a platform for pushing for democracy, and how is the role of Myanmar and how has evolved to report over the 9 past months? Thank you so much. You have 10 minutes starting from now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. I'm very happy to see everyone, particularly my other 2 speakers, comrades and colleagues, Makin Oma and Samai. And also I'm very happy that this discussion is being organized by Forum Asia and ATN, which have been consistently supporting democracy and human rights all this time for many decades. And your support has been very critical and essential for the people in Burma, Myanmar. And with your support, I believe Burma, Myanmar will be one day restored with a democracy. And so before I talk about our work and others, I would like to request to continue your steadfast support to the work that Burmese people are struggling and fighting for. I'm very happy to talk about Myanmar, but it is not Myanmar alone that has stand out or have worked. Many independent journalists, editors, and many independent media outlets have been struggling, and they have done very well, I must say, in the last particularly 9 months or 10 months after the coup, in resisting against the repression by the military regime. They have done. So we recognize the role of media, independent media in the country, as Sanmai has mentioned, many journalists are still continuing their work, taking their risk. Nowadays, to be a journalist or independent thinker or a person who wants democracy, you have to not only risk your life, which may be in fact easier in one way, but you have to risk the family's life. You have to risk the everything. You don't. You have to cut those, we call it in Burmese, tanyosin, those attachments. Individual, you have to cut those. All this, otherwise you cannot fight. Because the repression is so brutal and inhumane that you have to sacrifice all this. So we salute everyone who are struggling in the country. And to talk about Myanmar, of course, I have noticed the strong desire of the Burmese people in and outside the country to get news and information regarding what is happening in the country under the military regime. From day one, military regime wanted us to stop or to die, to be killed. They immediately shut down our free-to-air channel. They revoked our license. They arrested our colleagues, including co-founder Dottin. By the way, I'm very happy to say co-founder Tintin was just released a few weeks ago because of your support mainly. She was mentally tortured, I can say that much, during the interrogation, and finally she is released now. But the military regime didn't succeed in what they want to do. They wanted us to happen. They wanted us to stop. We continue our work. If we look at the number, from day one of military coup or attempted coup on 1st February over 9 months, more than 5 million new followers we have on Myanmar Facebook page alone. We have 3 pages, Facebook pages, and nearly 37 million videos alone. And Facebook page, like Myanmar TV Facebook page, we gained like 900,000 followers in 1 month. Like our newsroom news package, like daily news package, we broadcast a 10 news package a day, 1 news package on, even on Facebook, we get 100,000 views within a few hours. And our satellite free-to-air channels is now, 2 channels is in the top 5 in the country. Why? Well, what these data are showing? These data are showing 2 things. One is the people taking their risk even and they rely on this information to know, because there on the other side there is a total propaganda of the military regime. Second thing, it shows the work of the journalists continue their work despite the threats and arrest and torture that I mentioned. So that is very encouraging, and I'm personally very happy also to see the more and more young people are working into this field and striking for democracy. And for Myanmar, keeping with our long-term objectives, we aim to reach particularly women, youth, and marginalized population within Myanmar society. This is very important for us because we were living under the military regime, a successive military regime for many decades, with a propaganda that I used to say, I give my own example. My mother, when I was in university, always used to say, my son, if you get married, don't get married to a person who is from mountain. What that means is from ethnic area. And I was born, I lived under like that kind of thinking. And because of the propaganda by the military regime. And so we need to reach women, youth. We need to have the voices of the voiceless. And that is very important in our work. This focus is even more pronounced now, given the generational nature of the current opposition to regimes inside the country. If we look at the situation, the recent situation in the country, with Dawn San Suu Kyi sidelined, youth now forging their own struggle for democracy outside of her image, seeking to permanently end military dominance of the country's politics and economy. Very important. We are not talking of compromise anymore. There are determination by the young people, particularly, to permanently end the military dominance in the country. And the current opposition is largely characterized by a decentralized approach, which is keeping with a general goal of the realizing a diverse political playing field. And Myanmar, as an independent media, is serving as a platform for these young and diverse groups to air their grievances and show their intent, while also permitting for the diverse groups to interact with each other across media platforms. That is what Myanmar is doing. Myanmar platforms are the platform for voices of the voiceless and marginalized. And that the data also show this. If we look at the Facebook audience in October, 37% are women. And the people between 18 to 34 years old age are reading the Myanmar Facebook pages. And Myanmar TV channel, women comprised nearly half, like 47% views the Myanmar TV channel in October. So these numbers show that what we are also focusing in. And I'm very happy also that to see now the forces, the ethnic nationalities and Burman nationalities are coming together in a shared vision, in a shared future vision of the country and society. Of course, there's a long way to go, but I'm very happy to see that the people are coming together. We are also focusing on radio that in your introduction mentioned. Why radio? Because military regime basically use its tactic of like cutting internet from time to time. And so we need to have a media platform without using the internet, but also reaching to the remote areas, because we have a divide. The country still have a big divide between urban and rural area. So radio is very important, and we are using radio platform more and more as well as a new innovative platforms. So Myanmar basically aims to give the voice to the varied groups opposing gender rule, to the degree that they may be able to find common ground for a political future together. That basically will have to form the foundations of a future democratic federal state. That is what we are a part of that. And in the last 9 months, I would like to go briefly about 9 months. Basically, we prepared ourselves for the eventual military coup. Even before the coup, we prepare ourselves. That's why we were able to manage the period immediately after the attempted military coup. Basically, we scatter ourselves in different locations. Of course, some of us got arrested, but we were able to continue our work without any destruction. And we are now in a way normalized to a certain degree. We have a temporary head office. We have supporting offices and people working in different locations that I will not go into details for security reason. But we also use the technology and smartphones to make sure that those journalists and editors and non-journalist staff are safe and secure, and while working under the regime. Let me stop here, and if you have any questions later, I'm very happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Soumya, for your speeches and your comprehensive speeches on the role of MISIMA. I would like to now open the floor for everyone for Q&A live session. And yes, and if someone have some question, you can write in the chat. If someone you can write in the chat. Otherwise, also take the micro and take the floor.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Deepanjali from Sri Lanka. My question to Sengmai, the second speaker. I'm very sorry if I mispronounce your name. The question I have for you is that you mentioned that there's a protest to actually live streaming. If you could explain why that objection to live streaming particularly, that would be very helpful. And to the very first speaker also, who said that whether this is democracy or hypocrisy, I think it was very interesting, the question she posed. I'm just curious if there is a distinction in the way the military junta and Taliban are treated, maybe not just in Myanmar, but also outside of Myanmar as well. So to know your thoughts, if there's a difference, and why, if there is the international, not so much recognition, but at least if they are including them in the forums, as you said, the junta, why would that be the case, to understand why that's happening that way. The last question I have is for all the panelists. Do you have trade unions or journalist associations in Myanmar who actually speak for the protection of journalist rights, especially now that all these issues are happening? And how effective are they? And do you still get financial support to continue to do the work, the great work that you are still doing? Or are there actually constraints that you have run into after what has happened? Thank you very much. It was very interesting to listen to all of you.
ဟုတ်ကဲ့ပါကျွန်တော် live stream နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးမှကျွန်တော်ဖြေလိုက်မယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒုတိယ international ကျွန်တော်တို့အဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေသတင်းဌာနတွေကိုပံ့ပိုးနေတဲ့သတင်းအဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေကြတော့ဆရာစိုးမြင့်ဖြေပေးစေချင်တယ်ပေါ့လေနော်ဆိုတော့ live stream နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးမှ तू ကဘာကြောင့်မလို့ထိန်းချုပ်တာလဲဆိုတော့ live stream ကတော့ပေါ့နော်ပို့ပြီးမှတက်တည်ခိုင်လုံတယ်ပြီးနောက်တစ်ခုကတိတိကျကျရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြောမှဆိုရင် edit လောက်ထားမဟုတ်ဘူးပေါ့နော်အချိန်နဲ့တပြေးညီတနိုင်ငံလုံးတစ်ကမ္ဘာလုံးကိုစစ်တပ်ကနေနေတဲ့ဟာကိုတိတိကျကျကွက်ကွင်းမြင်စေတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့သူတို့ဒီ live stream ကိုထိန်းချုပ်တာဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော် live stream ကိုသူတို့မလွင့်ခိုင်းစေချင်ဘူး live stream လွင့်တာနဲ့သူတို့ကဒီမှာရာဘာဂျီနဲ့ပြစ်တယ်ပြီးရင်သူတို့ဒီဟာကိုထန့်သားတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြီးဖမ်းတယ်အဲ့ဒါကြီးလုပ်တယ်ပေါ့နော် live လုံးဝမလွင့်ခိုင်းပါဘူးပြောမှဆိုသူတို့ကပြီးသွားတဲ့အချိန်မှာ video တွေ edit လုပ်ပြီးတင်ကိစ္စမရှိဘူးသတင်းတွေရေးပြီးတင်ကိစ္စမရှိဘူးဒါပေမဲ့အရှိတမ်းမှာ live လွင့်နေပြီဆိုရင် live လွင့်တဲ့ကောင်ဖုန်းကင်ပြီးမှ live လွင့်နေတဲ့ကောင်တွေကိုသူကရာဘာဂျီနဲ့ live နေနဲ့လေးကွာရင်းနဲ့ live ပြစ်တာမျိုးလုပ်တယ်ဆိုတော့အဓိကကတော့ပို့ပြီးမှတက်တည်ခိုင်လုံတယ်နိုင်ငံတကာမှာချပြတဲ့အချိန်မှာပြီးရင်တနိုင်ငံလုံးကိုချပြတဲ့အချိန်မှာဘလို့နေနေတယ်ဘလို့တွေသူတို့တွေလူခွင့်ရချိုးဖောက်နေတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာတွေကိုကိုယ်မြင်လို့ဖြစ်ပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါကိုသူထိန်းချုပ်တာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဟုတ်ကဲ့
Shall I go ahead? Go, will you? Shall I? Okay.
Please go ahead.
I will. Yeah. Two points. One is the journalist associations and groups inside the country. We had a limited democratic space. I would say a limited democratic space in the last 5 years before coup. What we tried was to establish independent journalist associations and independent mechanisms, institutions. So they were working, of course, struggling as well, because it was working under the 2008 constitution, which basically gave veto power and a lot of authority in day-to-day even operation to the military regime. But even that limited space is now there anymore. The Journalists Association we try in the last 5 years are not able to function independently now. Some are still there in hiding or quietly doing their work, but not an institution they can publicly work. On the other hand, the military regime immediately after the coup and until now, they are replacing these institutions one after another, including journalists associations, press council, the film association, musician association, with their own people. Plus, they are modifying and they are drafting the laws. Even here, even the laws in the last 5 years are not democratic, but still they based on values, human rights and democracy. But military regime immediately after the coup, that we should not lose sight of that. They started adjusting and they started redrafting all these laws in power and to basically control the country tightly. For example, a country like North Korea. So that is one answer to the first question. Second one, in terms of support from international community, we are very happy to see that international community, and particularly those who have been supporting independent media and civil society in and outside the country, are very much aware of the changes and very much aware of what is happening on the ground. And we are very happy to see their support coming in right away, immediately after the coup. That's why we survived. That's why we were able to continue our work. Of course, still, is it enough? Not enough at all. Still, we need continued support, particularly to the ethnic media organizations and those who are working in very difficult situation, like for example, no internet, no television, no radio, but still trying to disseminate the information through mobile phones and chats and groups. So that I think the support is still needed. And more importantly, we need the long-term support. It is not for 3-4 years. The struggle I have been this struggle for more than half of my life, and I will not be 6 few more years. I will not be surprised. So we need long-term support, because we are talking about the end of the military dictatorship. We are not talking about the adjustment or changes or reforms of the military dictatorship. That means we need the sustained long-term support from international community. Thank you.
I guess it's now my turn to respond to the question, particularly on this international community. But I'm really sorry to our colleague from Sri Lanka. I didn't really catch your question very clearly. But
Yeah,
would
thanks
you?
much,
Thank
Ken.
you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you raised this very important point that whether this is actually democracy or hypocrisy. And you also mentioned a couple of points that are very important. It actually made me think whether there is a difference in the way the military junta and Taliban are treated. Because from what you were saying, it looks like that when there is still invitations for the junta to attend various international events. I'm not too sure if it's the same for Taliban as well, but do you see any distinction between the way these two groups are treated and also to elaborate on this international acceptance that may be extended to junta as well. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, we see the different treatment. That's for sure. Like, you know, I'm not so sure you catch the point in my sharing how this junta has been, the way how they act such inhumane acts is, you know, they are nothing more than a terrorist organization. I said that is, for example, like, you know, the civilians that they killed. Now after they kill the civilians, then they actually plant the landmine, cover with those civilians that they killed. So when people come, the villagers come, they see their villagers, their relatives and families. So they will try to, like they will pick up their dead bodies, right? Of course, there's an explosion. So who will do such thing? So you can really compare. I mean, that's the very reason we're using, based on what they do. This group is nothing more than, not only they are illegitimate and illegal, but it's also a terrorist organization. But then how the world is responding to them, and that's where I was trying to compare is like, especially in the recent weeks, we're seeing more international actors like giving such recognition, inviting them to speak in the high-level meeting, where the UNDP organize, or where Canada is part of this, AEM Canada trade meetings. So basically, even before I joined this panel, there is the media already reported the Myanmar police chief, who is responsible for the atrocity crimes in Northwestern. I have shared in my talk. He is going to be attending the Interpol General Assembly. Can you imagine Interpol General Assembly, right? Interpol supposed to be basically arresting the international criminals, whereas this criminal is going to be attending on behalf of Myanmar. Like I mentioned the name Canada as a country as an example. So this meeting that the junta's representative just attended, I mean, Canada, that we see Canada as a leading democracy. And also when it comes to Myanmar human rights situation within the UN system, Canada is kind of at the forefront. When it comes to the women, peace and security, or the sexual violence in the conflict areas, Canada is part of the group of a champion. In a way, you can think like, they will be actually taking the stand very clearly, right? But then we don't really see that, taking the stand clearly. But you see this hypocrisy with their democracy. Like on one hand, they're showing that they care for human rights protection, but then on the other side, they are still willing to shake hands with the hands of this military that is stained with our people's blood. And I don't I mean, just, it's really like I said, it's really bothering, it's really troubling. But also if you see of the past few years, in 2017 genocide against the Rohingya, after that, even the UN said that they failed. They said it is their own systemic failure in dealing with Myanmar. Well, look at all these UN agencies now in Myanmar. After 10 months, almost 10 months of this coup attempt by the junta, they are still willing to, and perhaps even already in the process of, or already signing these MOUs to continue their programs. I mean, seriously, what kind of programs that they want to implement for the people of Myanmar who are under severe violent attack by the military, that they are actually, in this revolution to, like Gosomin said, is to really uproot this military tyranny. So I just, yeah, I'm not so sure I'm really answering your question, but I can see how also the international slow and ineffective response, such as from the United Nations itself. You don't see, in spite of this very like a deepening multi-front crisis in Myanmar, you don't see the Secretary General of the United Nations taking the front role to address these issues. You don't see the UN Security Council, to discuss this matter in the very serious and as a matter of urgency. You don't see them doing that. So why? The question comes to be why, right? And then especially what is more troubling is when these so-called these democracy countries are doing that, then it leads us to question the motive behind why. Is it because of their businesses are there, like Japan, for example, or the Canada, for example, or like, I don't know. I mean, just we know that there are a lot of business interest in our country, and there are a lot of business deed that has been made. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we are calling for the cut of the money financial flow to this military, and we're calling on these governments to impose the targeted sanctions against this junta and target their military businesses and their cronies businesses, because after all, you see these countries' businesses investing, giving the money, like a Canada pension fund, for example, is, their money is invested in their businesses with the Myanmar military, for example. So yeah, I mean, what else can we think of? Like, what would be the motive that they're not doing what they should be doing as countries of democracies? Yeah. I'm not so sure I really answered your question clearly, but that's, yeah.
You did. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Actually, I see that there are other questions on the chat. I will go a little bit up. Wait. So the first question was from Corazon Ignacio. What is the media arm of the junta? Does it maintain its own communication network? It's a propaganda arm? If some of the speaker would like to answer to his question.
Samai, will you, or should I? Or Ma? Should I? Yes, the military have used the media. They have a slogan in the past, and they continue that kind of a strategy. Basically, to fight an independent media, they use their own media. So they have the state media, state-controlled media, television channel, which are used by the public money. They have newspapers, a daily newspaper, which is again funded by the public money. And they, more than that, what they have been doing now in recent, particularly after the coup, is they also are supporting and financing some of the online media outlets, which they used as a part of their propaganda machine, which is very clever way that they are doing. What they basically, they are using these media outlets, online media particularly, is okay, they can report on the ground, but they should not report, or they cannot report about the killings by the military. Okay, they can report about what is happening, like for example, people going around and going to the pagodas, but they cannot report about what is happening in the ethnic areas in terms of fightings and in terms of what is happening with the displaced people. So yes, these medias are used and set up and propped up by the military regime to basically channel this military's propaganda very carefully, apart from using their traditional so-called state media outlets. So that is one they are using. Another question here related to this is whether CNN and Al Jazeera are there. No, we don't have CNN and Al Jazeera in the country, but you will be surprised to know that BBC, Burmese service, VOA Burmese service, RFA Burmese service, these are international media working particularly on Burma, Myanmar. They are allowed, their licenses are not revoked in the country. Of course, there are two categories. Organizations like MISIMA and DVB and Nichina Journal, they are regarded as local media, and the government issued the license to do the media work. For the international media like BBC, Burmese, VOA, Burmese, etc., they are working as a foreign correspondent club in the country. So military regime allows them until now. Of course, those who are working for such media organizations have to cannot expose where they are and who they are. They are basically also in hiding, but they are allowed. Why? Military regime do not stop them, or because that is what military regime. We allow BBC, we allow VOA. That is how military regime use divide and rule all the time, almost in every sector, including in the media. So people should not be confused that if BBC is there is a media in the country. No, that is how they use it. I'm sure because we work closely with these media outlets like BBC, VOA, RFA, and we even MISIMA broadcast some of their content through our television channels, satellite channels. They are also risking their life, but the military regime for sure gives allow them to work still. Hopefully they could continue doing so because at least they are there. They can also have some kind of limited movement in the country. So that is my answer to the questions.
If I may add just one point to what Gosomyan said, also those media outlets, they largely depend on the local media, like MISIMA, or the ethnic medias, or even the citizen journalists, who are actually impacted, suffering, and witnessing. So basically, they are the source of those information. So that those international media outlets like BBC, for example, I think this is something that also, we see that is that's how they are able to cover their news. But something that I find it also lately, I find it also, I'm not so sure what Gosomya think, but I think I find it a bit challenging to see some, Voice of America, for example, or even BBC. I think both. The way how the media will interview and cover, it's a bit troubling to me. It's like that there seems to be more kind of like a, I don't know, like a what do we call it? They seem to be more care, thinking of their space in Myanmar, and therefore kind of shying away from some of the key issues, concerns happening on the ground, or even people being interviewed can be very pick and choose and only pick and selected based on their editorial kind of judgment, which I find it also quite politically biased at the same time. So I mean, just my opinion.
Thank you so much to Kinomar, Somya, and Semmai for answering to the question. Actually, there are still other questions on the chat, but since we are running out of the time, I will just split the participant in a breakout group, and maybe we can address this question in the breakout group. So I would like to remind that there will be one breakout room facilitated from a colleague of mine in English, and Mr. Somia will be assigned in this room. And there will be another room that is the plenary for Burmese speakers that will be facilitated by a resource person from Progressive Voice. And Semai will be assigned in this room. And Burmese participants can join either the English and the Burmese room as they feel comfortable. However, since in the Zoom, in the breakout room, the interpretation option does not work, will be only in the plenary. So I would like to ask to a colleague of mine to start if we can choose which breakout room where we would like to go. And also, Kinomar, you can choose in which breakout room you would like to be. Thank you.
How